most Americans don't know why, for heaven's sakes, the Jews vote Democrat. Why are the Jews socialists? I'm going to talk about that. It all goes together. I'm going to talk about why there will be a Holocaust in America, because the Jews vote Democrat. And there will be a conflict, I believe, between the right and the left in this country, and the Jews will be trapped in the middle. And I always insist, I have a sister who is a retired professor, and she's a communist. So usually our discussions are limited to what kind of chicken she's going to make and what kind of wine we're going to drink, and other than that, I really cannot talk to my sister about anything, or maybe family history. Because she has her ultra-left views, and I have my ultra-right-wing views. We come from the same mother and father. But you know, Esau and Jacob came from the same mother and father. God is full of surprises. And then I'm going to conclude the message tonight with the Judeo-Christian Bible Bloc Party in Israel. And I believe if Israel's population today is 7.5 million, and 10 million Jewish Christian immigrants move to Israel, and we go up to 17 million, my party will be the biggest party in the Knesset. And if my wife doesn't kill me, I'll be the prime minister. I don't take it for granted. By the way, June is our 50th anniversary. And by the way, I wouldn't be here tonight, I wouldn't be alive without my wife. I would not have written the books that I've written. Rachel has been my guide, my teacher. And she comes from the Middle East. She understands the thinking of these people. When I debate with left-wing people, I say, I'm not angry with you. You're not married to my wife. You have no way of knowing what I know. And so the purpose of my visit tonight is to give you some of that information that my wife gave me. And of course, the media, I don't blame the media. The media is ignorant, and if the media is ignorant, the media cannot tell you the real truth about what's going on in the Middle East or in America. Now, I don't want to turn this into a commercial or an infomercial, but I do have books, 7 books, I have CDs, DVDs, and it's about 27 hours of teaching. And again, I have to thank Chuck Missler for having put me on the map 20 years ago, because Chuck Missler helped me to produce the CDs and DVDs. They may be 10, 15 years old, but they are truer now than they were then. It's like the Bible. Does the Bible get old? One last thing I wanted to say. My son Aaron produced 4 DVDs. They're on the table. And they are archaeological studies. We prove, I don't want to say we, I don't take any credit. My son and Professor Zartal take the credit. They show that God's word, the Bible, is absolutely true. We take the places in Israel, Bethel, Shiloh, Mount Ebal, the giant footprints. Nobody knows about the giant footprints, except for maybe a few people here. I also forgot to mention this morning, and I'll say it now, because of COVID-19, and my son doesn't have groups coming to Israel, he is going to be starting on Sunday a Zoom seminar from Israel. And I think it's $90 or something. I don't know how many meetings it is. It's many meetings. And take my son's business card. I put him out on the table tonight. Send him an email and ask him exactly what the Zoom seminar is about, how many meetings there are. It starts Sunday. I'm sure it'll be archived, so even if you miss Sunday, you can still get, the past meetings. But we prove the veracity of the Bible. So, if I have time, I will talk about that a little bit at the end. So let's do the 5 deceptions, and it's going to be very, very abbreviated. I can do the 5 deceptions of Islam in 2 hours. and I don't have 2 hours for the whole message, so I'm going to do it in about half an hour, maybe less. Deception number one of Islam is that Islam is a religion of love. How many people heard that? Islam is a religion of love. I'm going to disprove that. Islam is a religion of peace. How many people heard that? You know, salam, Islam is the same word, means peace. That's another deception. Third, which I think is the most important deception, that Allah of Islam is the same as God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And I got a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland for saying that Allah is Satan, Lucifer, the devil. So is Satan, Lucifer, the devil the same as the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? I'm going to prove that. The fourth deception, Muslims say to Christians, oh yeah, we believe in Jesus Christ also. So we're going to disprove that too. And then the fifth deception is that the Quran is the divine, infallible word of Allah to Muhammad. And in case you didn't know, and it's in my black book, Islam Prophesied in Genesis, the Quran was written by a rabbi and a priest who were kidnapped and forced at the edge of a sword to write a holy book for the Muslims because they were illiterate desert nomads. And the rabbi and the priest sabotaged the Quran from the outset. But if you don't know Jewish and Christian theology, and if you don't read the Quran, you cannot pick up on the practical jokes that are in the Quran that were put there by the rabbi and the priest, who were promised their freedom upon writing the book, and then they were double-crossed and they were stoned to death. Okay. By the way, just a little thing you should know about. In Islam, they call Allah the greatest of all the liars and deceivers. Now, if you're a Christian, who's the greatest of all the liars and deceivers? Satan. They call their God Satan because, you see, in the Middle East, it's a little different than in the Midwest. For Jews and Christians, we are all commanded to obey the 10 Commandments and many other commandments. One of them is to tell the truth, not to bear false witness. But in Islam, if their God is the greatest of all the liars and deceivers, that's the role model for the Middle Easterners. The greater the lie, the more of a macho you are, the more you're respected in the Middle East. And any peace agreement we make with Muslims is a temporary peace agreement, which will be broken when it's convenient for the Muslims to break it. Because Allah and Muhammad made peace agreements, which they broke. Okay. So, I'm getting myself into trouble because the more I talk, the more I realize I have more yet to say. And we really don't have time. I don't want to spend the whole night talking about Islam. So, Islam is a religion of love. What are the two most important commandments according to Jesus Christ? Love the Lord your God, love your fellow as yourself. Now, did Jesus make this up? This is taken from Deuteronomy 6:4-5 and Leviticus 19:18. Jesus, I'm talking now as a Jew. Jesus was a Jewish teacher. He was a rabbi, and he quotes the Old Testament to the Jews. So the Jews and Christians have to get it straight that Jews and Christians are together here. We are one unit. And the Messiah is not coming or returning to Jerusalem only for the Jehovah's Witnesses or the Southern Baptists. You know the difference between Southern Baptists and Northern Baptists. Northern Baptists go to hell. That's a Texas joke. I get a lot of mileage in Texas with that. Now, in the Quran, it does say, love your fellow as yourself, but all the Muslim interpretations of that is that Muslims should love their fellow Muslims as they love themselves. It doesn't mean they should love Jews and Christians and others. Only they should love each other. The only problem is that Sunnis kill Sunnis, Shiites kill Shiites, and Sunnis and Shiites kill each other. they don't really love each other. And in the civil war in Iraq, ISIS, which is Sunni, was killing Shiites, and Shiites were killing ISIS, and both of them were saying, we hate each other more than we hate the Jews. That's pretty bad. So they don't love each other as themselves, even though it says so in the Quran. Love the Lord thy God, love thy fellow as thyself, not in the Quran. So is Islam a religion of love? Okay. That's the first lie, the first deception. Second, Islam is a religion of peace. Why? Because Islam comes from the root word salam. Now, for those of you, salam is peace. But for those of you who remember the Vietnam War days, and the American media would say, well, this or that Viet Cong village was pacified. Doesn't pacified come from the word peace? But it has another meaning. Usually immolated in napalm. Isn't that the Vietnam War? That the Viet Cong village was pacified. It's a euphemism. Islam is a euphemism for the defeat of the infidel, the destruction and defeat of the... When the infidel is dead and destroyed, he's been pacified. And the bottom line of Islam eventually is, if you don't become a Muslim, you have to die. The only problem is, if you do become a Muslim, you also have to die, because there are other Muslims who are going to want to kill you. You understand why Islam is a psychosis? You know what? I have to tell you the joke now. It's not a funny joke. It's a horrible joke, but it's very, very historic. And I spoke in 23 Swiss German cities for the EDU party because the Muslims wanted to build minarets throughout Switzerland next to their mosques. You all know what minarets are. Minarets are these tall spires, and they have broadcasters on the top. And 5 times a day, starting at 4 in the morning, Allahu Akbar. You know, if you live within 5 miles of that, you're going to hear it. And I don't know if it was Kenosha, Wisconsin. There was some town there where the Muslims came to the local people, Jews and Christians, in Wisconsin, and they said, you know, we want to have freedom of religion. For us, freedom of religion is to have those broadcasters and those minarets. And the Jews and the Christians, not really knowing what it was all about, agreed. Then 5 times a day and night, Allahu Akbar. Like, you try to sleep, you're not going to be able to sleep. The purpose of that is to wake everyone up. And so the Jews and the Christians sold their homes and moved away. Who bought the homes? The Muslims. And they wanted to do that in Switzerland. So the Swiss EDU party brought me in to speak in 23 German cities, which I did. And November 2009, they had a vote, a national vote, referendum. The Swiss people had to vote, do they agree or do they not agree to the building of the minarets? And the Swiss government was sure that the people would agree. And the position of the Swiss government was, this is going to be good for business for Switzerland, because all the Muslims are going to come in, a lot of money is going to come into Switzerland. And after I spoke in 23 cities, and I appeared on TV, if anyone here knows German, you know German. If you look up Avi Lipkin Schweiz in Google, you'll find it. It's in German. And it explains exactly what I did. And I told them this joke. And then in November 2009, they had the vote. 57.5% of the Swiss people voted against the minarets. And there were many people in Switzerland who came up to me and said, you deserve a medal for saving Switzerland from Islam. But the Muslims took me to court for hate speech because of the joke that I'm going to tell you. So I'll tell you the joke, and then we'll get back to the 5 deceptions, because the joke is at the heart of the 5 deceptions. Okay, what's the difference between neurotic people and psychotic people. Has anyone heard this joke before? I thought you heard me telling this before. So, neurotic people dream about castles in the air. Psychotic people live in castles in the air. And psychiatrists collect the rent. So you understand who the psychotic people are. Now, why was Adolf Hitler psychotic? Adolf Hitler was psychotic because he lived in castles in the air. And he believed he could conquer the earth. Now, can anyone conquer the earth? Only the Lord has dominion over the earth. No human being can conquer the earth. The Persians, the Greeks, the Romans, the Mongols, Napoleon, Hitler, Stalin, all thought they could conquer the earth. All psychotic, because nobody can conquer the earth. Secondly, Hitler thought he could kill all the Jews. Now, can you kill all the Jews? Now, there are two reasons you cannot kill all the Jews. Number one, either you're a believer, or number two, you're not a believer. If you're a believer, you believe in God, you believe in the Bible. Jeremiah 31:35 says that there will be no more Jews on the earth when the moon, the sun, and the stars stop shining. Isn't that God's promise that the Jews will always be there? But if you're not a believer, and if you know history, which is what I tried to do this morning, the Jews have been scattered to the four corners of the earth for many reasons in history. Psychosis number one, if you cannot conquer the earth, you cannot reach the Jews to kill all of them. That's for non-believers. It's just an historical statement. So can you kill all the Jews? Anyone who thinks he can kill all the Jews is psychotic, living in castles in the air. Okay, you with me? Now, what does Islam believe? Psychosis number one, they're going to conquer the earth. And I'm going to talk about how they plan to conquer the earth through immigration and through war and through terrorism. I believe in the end, Muslims lose. So it's a psychosis. They can't conquer the earth. Psychosis number two, they're going to kill all the Jews. Can the Muslims kill all the Jews? For the same reason that I just explained, psychosis. Now, unlike Hitler, they want to kill all the Christians, 2 billion of them. Even Hitler had no plan to kill the Christians. So that's psychosis number three. Psychosis number four, they're going to kill the Hindus. The Hindus are 1 billion in India. They're pagans. Pagans must die. This is the Islamic way. Psychosis number five, they're going to kill 2 billion Buddhists, including the communist Chinese. Now, I recommend to the Muslims not to mess around with the communist Chinese. They know what to do. They don't have the ACLU. And I think the Chinese heard this joke 13 years ago when I first told it, because the Chinese are taking steps in Western China to deal with the Islamic threat. It's a horrible set of steps that they're doing to the Uyghurs, but the Uyghurs are Muslim Turks who want to break away from China and join the Islamic Turkic states. China has its own interests, and China won't accept it. So there's already a conflict. I spoke about it this morning. The Chinese have a problem with Islam. And the United States, by withdrawing from Afghanistan, has very clearly declared its alliance with the Sunni Muslims, the very Muslims the Chinese hate. So the balance of power of the various allies on both sides are becoming clear. Psychosis number six, after 1/6 of the population of the world kills 5/6 of the human race, then the 1/6, the Muslims, they kill each other. Sunnis kill Sunnis, Shiites kill Shiites, and Sunnis and Shiites kill each other. That's psychosis number 6. Psychosis number 7, after everybody is dead, whoever's left gets 72 virgins. Now, you tell me that's not a psychosis. I can't handle my wife, Rachel. 50 years. They marry 4, they're crazy. How could they marry 4 women? 72 is psychotic. I told the next joke in Switzerland. I want you to know the Swiss, and my German friend will laugh with me. The Swiss are like this. That's how the whole lecture, and then I told this next joke, and the Swiss were rolling in the aisles. Do you know that if you die for Allah, you get 72 virgins? So Osama bin Laden dies for Allah. Beat me up, Scotty. He's up in heaven in his white cloak, waiting for 72 virgins. And who shows up? George Washington. George Washington, 6 foot, beats him up like crazy. President Adams then beats him up. Patrick Henry, give me liberty or give me death, beats him up. And then a whole line forms, 70 tall, strapping 6-footers to beat up Osama bin Laden. So he goes to Allah's office to complain. He said, you promised me 72 virgins. He says, no, silly, you weren't listening. I said 72 Virginians. So because of that, I got a 3-year jail sentence in Switzerland for hate speech. And I said, Islam is not a religion. Islam is a psychosis. It is a criminal psychosis. It is not a religion. And I don't know with the present administration, listen, I've been telling this joke 20 years already. I'm still not in jail, but it could happen. In Switzerland, I almost got put in jail. I have news for you. I founded a Judeo-Christian party in Israel. I'm afraid to tell the joke in Israel. They might put me in jail. Because the Israeli authorities always say, Avi, don't start a civil war with the Muslims. Now, I love the Muslims. I want you to know I love the Germans. But I will start a civil war with the Nazis. I will start a civil war with the communists. I will start a civil war with the Muslims if they follow that crazy system. Okay. Why is Islam not a religion of peace? This is the second deception. Because Islam is called the religion of the sword. In Arabic, Din Asayif. Din Asayif means religion of the sword. Remember the flag of Saudi Arabia? It's a green flag. There is no God but Allah. And Muhammad is his prophet. And underneath is a sword. And they say that the religion of the sword is greater than the religion of peace. Who's the religion of peace? That's us. I would need now at least half an hour to give you examples of the religion of the sword. If you don't convert, they chop your head off. You know what ISIS is doing? ISIS is still around, by the way. Shiites are doing it. Sunnis are doing it. They do it to each other. Why would they not do it to everybody else? Okay. Third deception, Allah and God are the same. This also, I need at least half an hour. But I'll do it in just a few minutes. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is the God of love and the God of peace. You look, I write about this in my black book, Islam Prophesied in Genesis. Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob were created by God to bless all the nations. Not Ishmael, not Esau, but Isaac and Jacob. So who is the father of Islam? Ishmael. The wild ass, the wild donkey. Have you ever seen a wild donkey kicking in all directions? You can't get near a wild donkey. That's Allah. That's Islam. That's Muhammad. That's Ishmael. When I wrote my book, I looked at all the horrible things that God despises, and they are at the heart of Islam. So you want to know Islam, just go to the book of Genesis. It's in my book. And I did it the Chuck Missler style of interpretation. So Abraham has two sons. Abraham has more than two sons. He has many more. Don't forget, Ishmael was the first, then Isaac, and then Abraham marries Keturah, and he has concubines. And how many people heard of Midian? Midian is one of the sons of Abraham, but this is really in Abraham's old age. And in my yellow book, I talk about Moses marrying the daughter of Jethro. Jethro was descended from Midian. So Moses, Jethro, Zipporah are cousins. And Moses knew exactly where he was going when he killed the taskmaster in Egypt. He was going to his cousin, Jethro. And Jethro is not a bad person. Jethro is described in the Bible as a very positive person. I don't know if you know this or not, but if you didn't know the joke, so you don't know what I'm going to say now. Do you know why Sarah demanded from Abraham that Hagar and Ishmael be expelled? It says because Ishmael was behaving in a haughty manner or a scoffing manner with his little brother, Isaac. But that's not what it means. King James version of the Bible sanitized it. The word in Hebrew is not scoffing. The word is litzachek. Sarah saw Ishmael mitzachek with her son Isaac. Mitzachek means raping or sodomizing. You ask the rabbis, they don't like to talk about it. See, because the Muslims were allies in Spain, so you really can't talk about it. You have to understand, the rabbis have a very skewed, distorted way of seeing things. But Rashi, the great rabbi from the year 1000 in France, he said it also. And if you know Hebrew, you understand it also. Sarah saw the son of Hagar sodomizing her son, who was about 3 or 4 years old, and said to Abraham, send them away. They will not inherit you. And Abraham sent them away. Many times I'm in Christian churches and the ladies say, we always thought Sarah was a beast. How could Sarah send away Ishmael? Didn't you realize that that was Abraham's only son for 13 years? But Ishmael was a wild donkey and a sexual pervert. And you look at Muhammad, sexual pervert. You look at Islam, sexual perversion. And what do they do to their women? What I'm only trying to do is to show you in the book of Genesis how things developed. And then when Abraham married Keturah and had more children with her and the concubines, what does God say to Abraham? Send them away with gifts, because only Isaac will inherit you. Isaac is the forefather of the Christians as well. And Jacob. Remember Jacob and Esau? Jacob and Esau were from the same mother and father, but the characters were different. Esau was a fighter. He was an archer. And then he went to marry the daughter of Ishmael, his uncle, who sodomized his father. So you see, there's a lot of psychological baggage in the Bible which is not being discussed by the rabbis. So the chosen lineage of God for the Jew, for the Christian, is Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, period. And they said, no, Ishmael. Because machoism is what's at the heart of Islam. By the way, in Spanish, macho means crazy. Remember Joseph? Joseph gets put in a pit, and his brothers were going to kill him, but they wanted to have a barbecue first. So they went and made their barbecue. Then when they came to kill him, he was gone. He was out of the pit. Who took him out of the pit? There was a caravan of Ishmaelites and Midianites descended from the children of Abraham, who were not of the chosen lineage. And you would think they'd take him out of the pit and say to Joseph, okay, go in peace, go to your father. Did they do that? No, they took him down and sold him into slavery in Egypt. Because the children of Midian and the children of Ishmael were disenfranchised. They were disowned, basically, by Abraham. So they didn't like the children of Jacob very much. I mean, you have to look at the behavior of each generation and where it goes. And then Moses, he's only 5 generations away from Isaac. And Jethro's only 5 generations away from Midian. They were brothers, half-brothers. In my yellow book about Mecca and Medina, I talk about things that may sound a little strange. What do I mean strange? Moses says to Pharaoh 6 times, "Let my people go." But the first time, and this is also mistranslated in the King James, "Let my people go, not so that they may celebrate the Lord in the desert." That is the mistranslation. "Let my people go so that they may go around in circles in the desert." That's what it says. Because I believe at that time, all the pagans, and everyone is a pagan at that time. There was no Judaism, there was no Christianity, there was no Islam. Everyone went to that black stone in the desert, Kaaba. It's on my cover of my book. And Moses was his understudy to Jethro. So you had 2 religions. You had the triangle, the pyramid of Egypt, of slavery, and then you had the cube, which was the symbol of freedom in the desert. But then God takes the Israelites and takes them away from the black stone and sends them to Mount Sinai. The real Mount Sinai is not in the Sinai Peninsula. It's not Santa Catarina. The real Mount Sinai is in northwest Saudi Arabia. How many people heard of Jim and Penny Caldwell? So I follow their guidance in that. And I think I said it this morning. My wife got frantic when she saw me on Egyptian TV this week. And the Egyptian TV was attacking me as the head of the Bible Block Party for saying that the Jews and the Christians are going to take Mecca and Medina and terminate Islam. Remember Rodney Dangerfield? I don't get no respect. I don't get no respect in Israel, but I do get respect in Egypt and Saudi Arabia. They also said that I'm a senior Mossad officer sent by Jerusalem to mobilize the Christians to defeat the Muslims. That's true. But I wasn't sent by the Mossad. Remember the Blues Brothers? I'm on a mission from God. So that's the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not very popular in most parts of the world. 2 billion Christians, very nice. 13, 14, 15 million Jews. And then you have Allah. To understand Islam, you have to understand the origins of the God with a small g, Allah. Allah al-Ilahi, Allah means God, but Allah al-Ilahi, which is what the Muslims call their God, is the moon god. The moon, that's why you see the moon crescent on top of the mosques. Now, how do you say moon in Spanish? Luna. It's a lunatic religion. And their God was one of 360 gods. And when Muhammad traveled with the Jews and the Christians in the camel caravans, and they rejected him, he said, "I'm going to create a God greater than the God of the Jews and the Christians." I don't know if you know this or not, but the Jews and the Christians are one people. We are the people of the book. Not 2 peoples. We're one people, Jews and Christians. And the only difference between Jews and Christians is that the Jews keep the Sabbath on Saturday and the Christians keep the Sabbath on Sunday. Therefore, the Muslims say, if the Jews keep the Sabbath on Saturday, slit their throats on Saturday, and if the Christians keep the Sabbath on Sunday, slit their throats on Sunday. Ha, ha, ha. My wife, Rachel, grew up in Cairo, Egypt, went to school with Christian girlfriends and Muslim girlfriends, And girlfriends were girlfriends, but when the question of religion came up, the Muslim girls would say to the Jewish and Christian girls, we kill you on Saturday and we kill you on Sunday. And this is what's inculcated in Muslim school children. And when they come to America, that's what they're inculcated with in the Muslim schools. We kill the Jews on Saturday, we kill the Christians on Sunday. So of the 360 pagan gods of Arabia, you had the moon, the sun, and the stars were the greatest of the 360 gods. And Muhammad promised the early believers that he would abolish all of the pagan gods except for the moon god. But he lied. The moon, the sun, and the stars are the symbols of Islam to this day. It's on their money, on their currency, on their flags. Look at the Islamic countries. You'll see the moon, the sun, and the stars. So after 12 years of Islam, there was almost a rebellion, and Muhammad promised to remove the sun and the stars, leaving only the moon. So Islam is monotheistic, but their God is not the monotheistic God of the Jews and the Christians. It's another God entirely. It's like if the Romans or the Greeks abolished all the gods except for Zeus, and Zeus became monotheistic, it still wouldn't be the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So they have the moon god, the war god, the sword god. You know when they pray? How many people have heard the Muslim call to prayer? Well, you have. They go, Allahu Akbar, and then they chop the head off of the enemy. Whenever you hear Allahu Akbar, run. Because that's their battle cry for chopping heads off. Now, your media, including Fox News, which is the only station I can possibly watch a little till I throw up, because Fox News is not much better than the others, but Fox News mistranslates Allahu Akbar. Allah is God, Akbar is great, God is great. Isn't that wonderful? Allahu Akbar, God is great. But again, it's a mistranslation. Allahu Akbar means that Allah is greater, diminutive, greater than the God of the Jews and the Christians. Okay, now if you're Christians, who said he was greater than God before his fall from heaven? Satan. So you have a God, Allah, who is greater than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. That's Satan. The call to prayer, Allahu Akbar, is the call to Satan. That's what I said in Switzerland. If you allow them to do that in Switzerland, they're going to conquer your country. The Swiss listened to me very carefully. And he's the greatest of all the liars and deceivers. So Allah's Satan. And he wants to kill the Jews on Saturday and the Christians on Sunday. Is that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob? Let me ask you a question. Does the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob love or hate the Jews? Does he love or hate the Christians? Does he love or hate the Hindus and the Buddhists and the pagans? Love the sinner, hate the sin. Here's a hard question. Does God love the Muslims? God loves the Muslims. Love the sinner, hate the sin. And Allah hates the Jews and hates the Christians and hates the Hindus and hates the Buddhists and hates the blacks. And the Muslims hate each other. Until, you ever heard of this thing about the vaccination? They say it's the depopulation of the earth. That's not true. Islam is the depopulation of the earth. Because they're going to kill everybody. And they come into America, and I've been very fortunate that I have not yet been put in the slammer for telling the truth. And my wife comes from there. And let me tell you, if I were not telling the truth, I would not be alive today because my wife wouldn't tolerate it. Everything I say is spot on, Rachel says. She's very proud of me. I also pay the bills. And I miss her very much. It's terrible. Nobody yells at me. She says to me, you do whatever you want, you go wherever you want, you eat and drink whatever you want. Now you're here in Israel under my control. And I'm smiling at her, what are you smiling at? And I said, I missed you. Oh, shut up, she says. So we have a very special, unique relationship. Okay. So are Allah and God the same? Allah and God are opposites. So Allah is Satan. Okay. That's the third deception. Fourth deception, they believe in Jesus Christ. Now, they do believe in Jesus Christ, but it's a slightly different Jesus Christ. Now, according to Islam, Jesus is a prophet. He's not God, he's not the Son of God, he's not the Messiah, he's just a minor prophet. And when he comes back, it says in the Hadith is a collection of traditions, it's not the Quran, but it's more important for the Muslims than the Quran itself. It says in the Hadith, Jesus Christ comes back on a black horse in a ninja outfit with a lance, and he kills the Antichrist with a lance. By the way, the Antichrist is a Jew. Okay, you gotta think about this a moment. Because when you meet Muslims and they say, we believe in Jesus Christ, you have to ask them, is he a Muslim? You know, the Muslims will say to you, wow, you're so smart. How did you know that Jesus is a Muslim? That's our secret. And the Antichrist is a Jew? That's our secret. How did you know that? Say, Avi Lipkin was in town. But he's now in Amarillo. And tomorrow he's going to be in Odessa. And after that, he's going to be back in Dallas. And then he's back in Oklahoma City again. By the way, what do you call a pallbearer in Oklahoma at a funeral? A karaoke. So, sorry about that. I want you to know I get a lot of mileage in Oklahoma with that joke. I tell it every night, every church karaoke. Okay. So their Jesus is a little different. And after he kills the Antichrist, who's a Jew, he goes up to Jerusalem, prays on the Temple Mount with 400,000 Muslim believers. Then he comes down, he breaks the crosses, destroys the churches of the Christians, destroys the synagogues of the Jews, and on that day of judgment, all the Jews and all the Christians who have not converted to Islam get their throats slit by Jesus Christ the Muslim. Ask any Muslim. I mean, keep a little distance in case they pull out a knife or something. But normally they're nice, and they're going to say, wow, you're smart. How did you know that? It's the Hadith. The Hadith teaches this, that Jesus Christ is coming back to kill the Jews and Christians. You don't have to go to college to know this. So anyway, that's in my books. There's another teaching on the Day of Judgment, and we all agree, Day of Judgment is soon. When I finish tonight, you're going to see just how close we are. It says on the Day of Judgment, the Muslims will have a final battle with the Jews, and all the Jews on the face of the earth will be dead, which is what I said before, the psychosis of Adolf Hitler to kill all the Jews. The Muslims want to finish the work. And there will be some Jews who temporarily avoid death. They will hide behind rocks and trees. And on that day, Allah will give mouths to the rocks and trees. And they will call out, "O Muslim pursuers, there is a Jew here hiding behind me, come and kill him." Until every Jew on the face of the earth is dead. That's also hadith. If you say that to a Muslim, he's going to say to you, wow, you're so smart. How did you know that? That's our secret. So here in America, there's something called jihad, holy war, by stealth. They come in as immigrants. They're the nicest people on earth until that switch goes on, and they become murderers. Because that's what they're supposed to do. Just last week, you had a member of parliament in London who was stabbed to death by a Muslim terrorist. You're not even a Jew. I have news for you. You are all Jews in the eyes of Islam. Jew, Christian, is the same for them. Just the tactical behavior is first we kill the Jews, then we get the Christians. Chapter 5, verse 51 of the Quran, Muslim believers, do not take the Jews or the Christians for your friends. The Jews and the Christians are friends with one another. Whoever befriends them will become one of them. Allah does not guide the wrongdoer. A Muslim may not be your friend if he's a true Muslim. And if it becomes known in the Islamic ummah or people that that Muslim is your friend, they'll kill him. That's what it means when they say that Allah does not guide the wrongdoer. Chapter 5, verse 33. Anyone who makes war against Allah, which is what I'm doing, and his prophet Muhammad, which is what I'm doing, and spreads disorder on the earth, we will kill, we will crucify, we will chop their arms and legs off, and we will banish them from the land. That's me. And that's you, whether you like it or not. If you're a Christian and you go to church, you're an enemy of Islam. And like I said before, even if you, God forbid, become a Muslim, you're still an enemy of Islam because there's some other Muslim who won't like you. Islam is the perfect depopulation system on earth. Because Allah cannot claim that He's greater than the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob until all those who are created in the image of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, you and me, and the Muslims, are all dead. Allah wants the Muslims dead too. I'm going to ask you, do you think I hate the Muslims? I love the Muslims. I cry for them. When they kill each other, when they torture each other, they do terrible things to each other. And look what they do to their women. So Allah and God are not the same. They're opposites. I could go on and on for hours about this. And the fifth deception is that the Quran is a holy book. The divine infallible word of Allah to Muhammad. Now, I want to tell you something. As you can tell, I'm an American. I've been in Israel 53 years, but they still laugh at me. You still talk like an American. I have an American accent when I speak Hebrew. I grew up in the American school system. I was taught in the American school system there are three great monotheistic religions: Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. That's a lie. There's only one faith, and that's in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you want to believe in Jesus, terrific. If Jews don't want to believe, you might say it's not terrific, but the Father, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, appears 7 times in the New Testament. So we have a certain God, we believe in a certain way, and they have another God, a God of death and destruction, who will not rest until everybody's dead. Okay, so that's the 5 deceptions. I kind of swung it in half an hour, a little more. We have an hour, a little less than an hour left. One of the things I've noticed, everybody talks about global warming. And you know what? I'm not going to talk about global warming, but I will talk about something that I see very clearly. If you look at the map or the maps of Africa over the last 100 years, and you see North Africa is desert, and from the middle of Africa south is jungle. But you have a line moving south. From south of the Sahara, you have Sahel. Sahel means like a bushy desert type area. And that line of desertification is constantly moving south. Wherever Islam goes, it becomes desert. Wherever the Christians go and the Jews, it becomes green. So, are Jews and Christians going to want to live in the desert? But the Muslims, they come to America, they come to Europe, they come to the Christian lands because they have work, they have money, they have a good life, but they want to bring that cursed Islam with them, which is going to kill everybody and destroy the country. So I'm not talking about global warming. What I'm talking about is we have to save the earth and stop the desertification. You know, I'm changing the subject completely, and I'll come back to the desertification. We made peace with Egypt in 1979, and I supported that peace. My wife still says the day will come that Egypt will attack Israel, because peace with Islamic countries is always temporary. Then in 1994, our former Prime Minister, rest in peace, Yitzhak Rabin, made peace with King Hussein in Jordan. I mean, we were really thinking, you know, the days of the Messiah are coming. And part of the peace agreement with Jordan was, you know, Jordan has no water. And Israel, as part of the peace agreement, agreed to supply Jordan with water. Last week, it was in the news that the Jordanians asked and received double the amount of water. So let me tell you, I moved to Israel 53 years ago. And I would read in the newspapers 53 years ago in the Jerusalem Post that the Jordanians had water in their taps 2 days out of the week. Water was rationed. There was no water in Jordan. Today, there's water in the Jordanian taps 24/7. And they doubled the amount of water they're getting from Israel. That's the peace. If Jordan blesses Israel with peace, Jordan gets water, gets blessed. Again, I'm not talking about global warming. I'm not talking about the levels of the sea rising. Because everywhere I go back to Great Neck, New York, where I was raised. I go down to the beach there, to the water line, same water line, hasn't changed. Or I go to Tel Aviv, to the beach, water level hasn't changed. But I will say one thing. Israel, in 1948, had 648,000 people. Today, Israel, with the Palestinians and the Arab Israelis, we're over 10 million, 12 million. But the water, the rain that falls in the Sea of Galilee is always the same. And it's very unreliable. You never know when you're going to have a rainy season or not. You may have a drought. So the Israeli government instituted something called the desalination of the water. We put up 5, 6, 7, I don't even know because they keep putting up more and more, desalination plants on the Mediterranean coast. Do you know that 70% of the water that we drink in Israel is desalinated seawater? And we pump water now from the Mediterranean Sea after it's been desalinated, we pump it into the Sea of Galilee. And from there, we send the water over to Jordan. If the Syrians weren't so stupid, if they would make peace with us, we'd give them water too. You know, Iran, we're on the verge of a war with Iran. The people in Iran are not bad people. They're good people, but they turn on the tap in their kitchen. What comes out? Mud. The Iranian people don't have water. If the Iranian people the Iranian government wasn't so stupid, they'd make peace with us and we'd have desalination plants all along the Iranian coast. And they would be desalinating the water and giving their people to drink. What does God say? Genesis 12:3, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who curse you. Lebanon is on the verge of a civil war again. The country is in complete self-destruct mode. But anyone who says, let's make peace with Israel, they're going to be killed. Even the Christians in Lebanon are afraid to say anything. Israel single-handedly could save Lebanon. All they have to do is just stop hating. That's the devil. Hatred is from the devil. So that is God versus Allah. And the fifth deception about the Quran Does anyone here know who wrote the Quran? No hands? Pastor knows. It's in the black book on the table. The Quran was written by a rabbi and a priest who were kidnapped by the Muslims, who were illiterate desert nomads, and they were told what to write, but they jazzed it up with some of the New Testament and Old Testament. Finish the book, we'll let you go free. The problem is, who is Allah? The greatest of all the liars. So they double-crossed the rabbi and the priest, and they stoned them to death. But the rabbi and the priest knew that this was what was going to happen. So the rabbi and the priest wrote the Quran, and they self-destructed the Quran. This I cover in my black book, Islam Prophesied in Genesis, because it's all based on lies. The name of the rabbi, Ovadia ben Shalom, or Abdullah ibn Salam, and the name of the priest was Sergius Bukhaira. Are we streaming this? Yes. Are there people all over the world who are hearing this? Yes. Good. It's in my book. You know, speaking about Appleton, Pastor Gary spoke about Appleton, and I always used to love going there to speak at the Calvary Chapel there. One day, I get a telephone call. Forgive me. I got a telephone call from a Catholic. And he lived in Appleton, or he lives in Appleton. I haven't spoken to him in a long time. And he said, I heard your story about the Catholic priest, about the Christian priest. It wasn't Catholic, it was Syrian. And the Jewish rabbi writing the Quran. And I want you to come to Appleton to my house. And I slept in his house a few nights. I spoke in Appleton at the church, and then I went from the Protestant place to the Catholic place. And don't be angry with me. I love Catholics. I've got a disagreement with the Pope, but I love the Catholics. They're good people. By the way, most Catholics are Jewish also. They just don't know it. Especially Hispanics. Hispanics are all Jews. I don't know if you know that. Hispanics are all Jews. So I meet this Catholic guy in Appleton. He gives me a book written in 1911 by his Jesuit priest from India by the name of Menezes. And this Catholic priest gives the name of the rabbi and the priest. I heard this orally, but it was reconfirmed by this Jesuit priest who wrote the book. Because these nomads, these desert nomads, were not capable of writing a book because they were illiterate. So they kidnapped the rabbi and the priest, promised them their freedom upon completion of the work, and then killed them. So the Quran is a joke book. Allah is the devil, and Islam is a criminal psychosis. Now, will there ever be peace with Islam? There will never be peace, because they're the religion of the sword, and they want to kill everybody, including each other. So now that we know who the enemy is, one of the enemies, I'm going to talk about another enemy at the end, the atheists. They're an enemy. They may call themselves Jews and Christians, but they're atheists. They're enemies. They don't believe in God. We'll talk about that later. And I know I spoke about this in this church. How many people remember Fiddler on the Roof? Okay, now, if you remember Fiddler on the Roof, Tevye the milkman is pointing his finger at God and reproaching God and saying to God, why did you choose us as the chosen people? Don't you know how much trouble that's caused us? We've been murdered, we've been raped, we've been kidnapped, we've been everything, all the bad things that could happen because we were the chosen people. So he says to God, go choose somebody else. Choose somebody else to be the chosen people. The Jews suffered tremendously in Russia under the Tsars. They also suffered under the Germans and under the French and under the Italians, under everybody. Jews suffered and suffered and suffered. And many of the Hispanics in New Mexico and Texas, other places, their origin is Jewish, and they suffered under the Catholic Inquisition. It was horrible being a Jew for many people. So in the middle of the 19th century, all of a sudden you see this new ideology called Marxism. Later, Marxism became socialism and communism. You know, in the book of Ephesians, it says the one new man in Christ. When everyone believes in Christ, there will be peace on earth. We spoke about that in the morning. There will be peace when Jesus returns. But the ideology of communism, socialism, and Marxism is that all the troubles that the Jews are facing are because of God. And so there were many Jews who said, we're going to punish God. We're going to abolish God. We don't want to know about God. And they became what is known as communists or socialists or universalists. I'm going to talk about the universalists here in America. Jews, 70% voted Democrat. They're universalists. They're not nationalists. 30% of the Jews are nationalists. I'm a Jewish nationalist for America. I'm also a Jewish nationalist for Israel. Israel and America, in my opinion, are one and the same. And so, of course, some Jews succeeded in leaving Russia, coming to America and other countries, and were blessed. America never killed one Jew. Many Jews succeeded exceedingly well in America. Some were laborers. They became labor union people, and they became socialists and believing the old teachings of Europe. Again, I'm watching the clock. We don't really have much time. I'm packing it in. I've spoken about American history. The Jews have been here from the early 1600s. You know, Plymouth Rock was 1620. 1648, there was a Jewish community in New York, which is called New Amsterdam. It was Dutch. Charlotte, Savannah, Providence, Rhode Island. There were early Jewish communities in the 1600s. No Jew was ever killed in America for being a Jew. It's one of the reasons why America is world power number one. Because America always blessed the Jews, so God blessed America. Amen? You know, I have to tell you, I had occasion to... Does anyone here know Joe Good? Joe Good. Joe Good is from Texas, and I finally met him after like 20 years. And he's a Southerner. His wife was from a very established Southern family, and from Georgia. And I heard in Kansas, maybe 20 years ago, the Jewish Legion sent a speaker who went and said that there were so many Jewish soldiers in the Confederate Army that when they came to Jefferson Davis and said, we want to go home for Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, he said, God forbid, if you Jews go home, the Confederate Army collapses. There were so many Jews in the Confederate Army. And President Lincoln established the Jewish chaplaincy for the Union Army. Jews were here. Jews fought in the American Revolutionary War. Valley Forge, there were 500 Jews who stood bivouac during the Christian services for Christmas. When the revolution went bankrupt, in the summer of 1777, George Washington comes to the Jews of Philadelphia and says to them, you have to go home, bring all your gold, otherwise the British will hang all of us. And the Jews came back with what at that time was $30 million worth of gold bullion, and the Jews saved the American Revolution from bankruptcy. Jews have been here from day one. Did America ever kill a Jew? Never. Now, I go into churches, I look at the faces, and I look at the people, and I say to them, does anyone here have Jewish family? People look, well, we think maybe somewhere way back when we had a Jewish antecedente. And I say to them, I say to people in the churches, you are all Jews. Because the Jews who came here in the 1600s and 1700s and 1800s were so well treated by the Christians that they intermarried with the Christians. So where are the Jews today? You are the Jews from that time. So who are the Jews who vote Democrat? They're not the Jews who came in the 1600s, 1700s, 1800s. They are the Jews who came from Europe in the last 100 years. And we have all this hatred in Europe. No hatred here, maybe a little bit of hatred, but nothing serious compared to Europe. So the Jews who came in the last 100 years, they have the Nazi Holocaust, they have the Bolshevik Revolution, the Tsar's persecution before, the Catholic Inquisition, all the horrors of Europe. And they come here, do you think they want to go into a church? When I was a young kid in New York, I was trained to hate the Christians. All Christians were bad. I'd see a church steeple with a cross on it, I'd want to blow it up. That's what a lot of Jews feel. I'm telling you because I was one of them. Today I see a church steeple with a cross, and I say, that's the church I need to get into to speak. Because you guys are my family. Rabbis hate it when I say that, but you are my family. The Jews in America don't go to church. They don't know you. I say to the Jews, you need to go to church on Sunday. They say, we don't go to synagogue on Saturday. You want us to go to church on Sunday? And they say to the Jews, you need to read the New Testament. They say, we don't read the Old Testament. You want us to read the New Testament? But what I learned by going to over 1,000 churches is that when I get to know you, I fall in love with you. And maybe some of you fall in love with me, and by extension, the Jewish people. Remember The King and I? Richard Rogers, getting to know you, getting to know all about you. What's anti-Semitism? Anti-Semitism is not only when Christians hate Jews. Anti-Semitism is when Jews hate Christians. And believe me, we have a lot of it. I see it in Israel. I see the animosity to me in Israel because I formed a Judeo-Christian partnership party, alliance party. Thank you. And we're facing a war of survival in the Middle East, and we're facing, believe it or not, a war of survival in America and in the West. So I have to tell you a little story. It's called the Edmonton Revelation. It's in my red book. Fortunately, I can say the books by the colors, you know. I'm driving from California up to Canada, Interstate 5, through Oregon, Washington. I've got churches all along the route. And I cross over into Canada, and I go to a farmhouse. Has anyone here heard of Maple Ridge? Maple Ridge is just outside of Vancouver. I speak in a farmhouse, 50 people show up, and many of them are Canadian police and military. And I speak 3 hours. And it seemed to have gone over well. They said, can you stay 2 more nights? So Monday, Tuesday, I spoke again. Spoke 9 hours. Wednesday, Thursday, I drove across the Canadian Rockies up to Edmonton. And I got there just in time Thursday evening to speak in a Northern Baptist church. They didn't like the joke very much. But it was a nice meeting. 20 Jews showed up from the community. The next day was Friday. And they called the local rabbi. We have this Lipkin, he's an Israeli army spokesman, and He's here for Shabbat. Can you take him in? He said, sure, send him over. So I go over to the rabbi. He says, what's a nice Jewish boy like you doing in a Christian church or Christian churches? And I said to him, listen, we Jews are 5 million people. In 1999, we were 5 million in Israel. Now we're 7 million, praise God. And the Muslims are 1.5 billion. Now, I said, if we had 100 million born-agains on our side, that might help level the playing field. And the rabbi said, wow, I never thought of it like that. Praise God. Good that you go to the churches, he said to me. He said, I would never step in a church, but if you go to the churches, it's good for you. You know, because Jews are not allowed to step in churches, according to the Talmud. I'm breaking rules. So the next day, he introduces me, and he says the Christians give Avi Lipkin 10 hours to speak, and we Jews are going to give him 10 minutes today after we finish eating. Remember what I said about the food in the synagogue this morning? So I get up to speak, and I get shouted down by liberals. See, liberals are liberal with you if you are liberal like they are, but if you're not liberal like they are not going to be very liberal with you. And they shout you down. I was shouted down by the liberals. So a Christian lady gets up. A Christian lady in the Jewish Orthodox synagogue. What was she doing in the synagogue? She wanted to know who Jesus Christ was. What does it say about Jesus? He was in the synagogue, he read from the law, he read from the prophets, and then he gave a sermon. Nothing has changed in all these years. That's the way it is today. And she said, if you don't let Avi Lipkin speak, and if you let me speak, I have something to share. And everybody knew her. They liked her. She's a good woman. And she said, I'm a social worker for the government of Canada, province of Alberta, city of Edmonton. And I'm a caseworker for a Muslim Egyptian woman doctor. How many people remember this testimony? I see a lot of new people here. This is a scary testimony. And she was in Egypt like Mother Teresa. How many people remember Mother Teresa? Now, Mother Teresa was a saint. She died at age 99. Her whole life was to help the people of India. And this woman, this Egyptian woman doctor, was in her 40s, not married, and she was working for free, like a volunteer for the poor Egyptian people. So she was in her 40s, she got midlife crisis, and she decided to emigrate to Canada, because if she emigrated to Canada, she could work 20, 25 years, get a nice retirement pension from the Canadian government. Otherwise, if she stayed in Egypt, she died in the poorhouse and die young. And the Egyptians, you know, she went to the Canadian embassy, applied for a visa, and immediately she was approved because she was a famous woman in Cairo. The next day there was a knock on her door, and there was 3 jihadis, 3 holy men from the mosque. She knew them because she went to the mosque every day to pray. And they said to her, congratulations. She said, why are you saying congratulations? Because we know you're going to Canada. So she said, how did you know I'm going to Canada? She says, well, we have our people everywhere in the Egyptian government, and we know everything about you, and you're going to work for us. She said, well, what does that mean? Oh, yes, you're going to have a clinic in Edmonton, and the Jews and the Christians and the Muslims are all going to come to your clinic. Now, when you go to a doctor or a dentist or even a chiropractor, you have to fill out forms. Name, address, telephone number, place of employment, address, telephone number. And you're going to put this on a hard disk. You're going to give it to us. And we're going to know who all the Jews and Christians are. And when a war breaks out in the Middle East, a war will break out here in Edmonton. And in Edmonton, the Muslims of Edmonton will kill the Jews and Christians in Edmonton. And the Muslims in Vancouver will kill the Jews and Christians in Vancouver. And the same in Toronto, and the same in the United States, and the same in all the Western countries. All the Jews and their Christian spouses and friends have to be collectivized. They have to be cataloged. And when orders are given, the Muslims know who to kill. You begin to understand what we're all facing. Pastor Gary and Georgie, they're Jews. In the eyes of Islam, they're Jews. They're sympathizers with Israel. They're on the list, I'm sure. I don't know how many of you remember there was a Muslim woman sitting here following every movement that I made. I'm glad she's not here now. No, because they're sent. There's a pastor in San Diego who got into a lot of trouble because of me. Because I appeared on a radio show, very right-wing radio show, and that day my wife had told me that the Muslims had said that they have Muslim spies in every church in the United States because they follow what's being said in the church. And the guy who interviewed me is ultra right-wing. Remember Hannity and Combs? Alan Combs? So Alan Combs calls me. I'm driving through South Dakota, heading up to North Dakota. He said, "Did you really say that?" I said, "Yes. Muslims have spies in the churches to know what they're saying in the churches." So the Muslims know who the pastors are. They know who the congregants are. They are fastidiously preparing a list for annihilation. Here in America. I mentioned Michael Medved this morning. He will not have me on his show anymore because I don't know how many years ago it was, I said there were 20 million Muslims in America. Because the Louis Farrakhan Nation of Islam Muslims are 4 million, the Shiites are 9 million, and the Sunnis are 9 million. That was years ago. I think they're 30 million now. Anyway, getting back to this Egyptian woman doctor, she said she wouldn't work for them. So standing next to her was another Egyptian woman helping her in the clinic, and the 3 jihadis pulled out a knife and they slit her throat. And they said to the doctor, "If you don't work for us in Canada, this is what's going to happen to you." The next day, she had political asylum in the Canadian embassy in Cairo, and the Royal Canadian Air Force flew in a private jet to pick her up and bring her to Edmonton. And this Christian woman attending the Orthodox Jewish synagogue was the caseworker for this Egyptian Muslim woman doctor. And this story was in all the newspapers in the province of Alberta in the summer of '99. It was never mentioned in the province of British Columbia. It was never mentioned in Saskatchewan. It was never mentioned in Montana, just to the south. This is a local story. But here you have it. I was shut down by liberals in the synagogue so that I would listen to this Christian woman telling me about the Muslim woman. And there is a plan to annihilate the Jews, because the Hadith says that on the day of judgment all the Jews will be slaughtered. These people are loyal to what they believe. They believe in a psychosis. They're loyal to the psychosis. You know, I'm going to speak, God willing, next week in Yukon. Not Yukon, Alaska, Yukon, Oklahoma City, Baptist Church. And I was there a few years ago, before COVID. And 4 cops came up to me, 4 policemen, members of the church. And they said to me, "We have to tell you a little story. Our friend, the sheriff in Tulsa, was responding to an alarm that went off in a mosque. So the sheriff went to check out the alarm. There was a door open in the basement, and there were dozens of machine guns hanging on the wall. In the mosque, in a holy house of God, supposedly. And so they called the FBI, and the FBI said, "You can't touch them. They have licenses. It's all legal." The New York Times, the paragon of truth and virtue, came out and said the reason the Muslims are all armed in America is because they feel that Americans hate them. And so they want to protect themselves. No, the reason they have arms is because they want to kill the Jews and they want to kill the Christians at the right time. And that's when a war breaks out in the Middle East. Because this is a global war. By the way, there's some Muslims who are Zionists. Why are they Zionists? They want the Jews all to move to Israel, because once the Jews are all concentrated in a small country, it'll be easier to destroy them. I got a surprise for them, because our borders are going to expand from the Nile to the Euphrates and from Saudi Arabia and Yemen all the way to Turkey. And we will have room for tens of millions of Jews and Christians to come and live with us. And we're going to have water desalination plants. We're going to turn the whole desert green like the Garden of Eden. What did God command Adam? You tend my garden. What are the Muslims doing? They're burning down the forest. They're burning down the gardens. I'm not going to be able to finish the message tonight. I'm going to tell you another little story. Just before COVID, summer 2 years ago, I was in Florida. And a lady friend of mine said, there's this guy who just wants to meet you. He's a militiaman. I said, okay. I work with the militias. I work with the militias, the Tea Parties, the Republicans. I work with everybody. And we went to a restaurant. We sat for 2 hours. Very nice dinner. And we were talking about President Trump and the good things he's doing and the right wing, and because I'm right wing. I'm not ashamed to say that I'm right wing. And then he asked me, what do you think about defund the police? And no, it wasn't 2 years ago, just a year ago in the summer. I said, well, defund the police is horrible because you're going to have tremendous increase in crime and murders and not very encouraging for the police to do their work. By the way, COVID-19 is also destroying the police. And he said, you know what? We grew in the last few months from 3 million militia members to 30 million. We're all armed and we're all ready. If there's no police, then there has to be militia protecting the people. I agree with that. And now with COVID, it's going to get even more. So I'm listening, and then he says to me, and when things break out, meaning a civil war in America, because the Democrats are pressing and pressing and pressing, and in the end there's going to be an explosion with the right wing, because until now the right wing are Christian and they're forgiving and they're nice about it. It's not going to continue very long. Civil war. And when that happens, you know what the first thing we're going to do, he said? We're going to kill all the Jews. I said, what? Yes, the Jews are Democrats. They're socialists. They're universalists. They are not nationalists for the Christians in America because of all the reasons I explained. And so the Jews have to die. I said, no, but firstly, 30% are Trump people of the Jews. No, it doesn't. We'll get rid of all the Jews, to be sure. I got up and I left the table. I said, I can't work with somebody like you. You're a Nazi. So I got up and I left. How many militia? 30 million. How many Muslims? 30 million. Let's say only 10% are terrorists of the Muslims and 10% of the militias are Nazis. 90% are good people. I know the militias are good people. Patriotic people, good Christians. Loyal to the country, loyal to the Constitution. But if you've got 6 million terrorists, 3 million Muslims, 3 million neo-Nazis, and you've got 6 million Jews, and who are the people who won't listen to me? The Jews. The very same people are going to be annihilated. They don't want to hear about it because they're too happy with JFK. Remember this morning, JFK? Jews are living like the Jews in Europe in 1938. They couldn't believe that something could happen so bad in America or in Germany at that time. Jews are so smart as individuals, but as a collective, we're very stupid. And then you've got a group called Black Lives Matter. Black Lives Matter are an offshoot of Islamic Jihad. And you know what they say? Jews are slumlords. We have to kill them. And then you have Antifa. Antifa are communist Bolsheviks. Jews and Christians have to be destroyed because they believe in God. This is the 1917 Bolshevik Revolution. Here in America, you've got these four forces coming together. And if indeed there is a war with China, which is what I said in the morning, and terrible things happen in America, who's going to be blamed? The Jews. Because that's the way it's always been in thousands of years of history. So here I am, crying out in the desert. No, who's listening? Only you guys are listening. I'm working on my party. I haven't even spoken at all. I need 2 hours to talk about my party. I've got another 20 minutes, 15 minutes. Israel was a desert. It was horrible. Remember Mark Twain? Mark Twain visited Israel in 1867. He wrote a book called Innocents Abroad. He said, if this is the promised land, I sure don't want it promised to me. Because the Holy Land was a desert, it was a swamp, the trees were chopped down. Miserable place. Mark Twain walked for 2 days, he didn't find any human beings. It was empty. And though many Jews came from Middle Eastern countries, the primary group of Jews who came back to reclaim the land were communists and socialists. Because even though in Russia they were communists and socialists, and they rejected God, but they were still rejected by the Russian people who were anti-Semitic. So they said, you know what? We will have this socialist haven in Israel. They came to Israel. And I write about this in my book, Israel's Bible Block. Most Americans don't know anything about how history was created in Israel by the communists and the socialists. And people like me were always on the outskirts. We were always rejected. Do you know why I'm in church here tonight? Because God slammed shut all the doors in my face in Israel. I feel like Joseph. I was kicked out by my brethren from my own country. But like Joseph said, it was for life. God had a good reason for Joseph to be in Egypt, to save his people when there was starvation in the land. And I believe God has me here in America. You are like the modern-day Egypt. Egypt was the greatest country on earth at that time. And we need you to stand with us because Israel is also your land. And when the day comes, I don't want to say unfortunately, because maybe God's will is if the Jews do not face a tremendous shaking in this country, they'll never leave. God wants the Jews to go home. He's done this in so many other diasporas. And so today in Israel, after tremendous efforts, I succeeded in registering the party in 2018. We ran in 4 elections. Each election we got about 400, 500 votes. People who I really worked hard to convince to vote for my party. But we don't need 400, 500 votes. We need 140,000 votes to get our first 4 deputies into the Knesset. And so my efforts have been in the last few months to continue coming to the States to raise the money to have my books published in Hebrew and Russian, because there are 400,000 non-Jews who speak Russian in Israel. And the Israelis, I think, when they know about my party, you know, why do so many Israelis leave Israel to come to America? Because they want America. So I'll bring them America to Israel. And our population is going to grow, I believe, from 7 million Jews and 500,000 Christians to 17 million Jews and Christians. My party will be the biggest party in Israel. Many people think I'm completely nuts, but I say God is nuts too. Nothing is impossible in the Lord. I almost died 6 times, 3 times in the army, 3 times in traffic accidents, heart attack. And God is saying to me, shut up and stop complaining. I have a stent. I'm already on my 2nd pacemaker. I'm a maniac with that pacemaker. And I'm going to keep working till I drop. People ask me, when will you get into the Knesset? I say, well, I'm 72 now. When did Moses start his ministry? When he was 80. So I got 8 more years. And then I've got 40 more years in the Knesset. And if I get in with 4 members of Knesset, which is the 140,000 votes, I may even be a cabinet portfolio minister. Because it's all or nothing. Either I have 140,000 votes and get in with 4, or I don't get in at all. And like I said before, when the Jews and the Christians start coming home in massive numbers, my party will grow by leaps and bounds. I sent my information to the man who is now president of Israel, Yitzhak Herzog. And I was very angry with him because his secretary said, send all the information about the Muslims and the neo-Nazis. And he finally sent me an email, thank you very much. Because I said to him, you're going to be president of Israel, you should at least say thank you. Didn't invite me for coffee yet. But 2 weeks ago, before I came to the States, it was in the news in Israel that they are preparing an emergency program to receive 500,000 Jewish immigrants from the States. So somebody evidently is listening. And so all I can say to you, I know the pastor wants to do some questions and answers. We have like 10 minutes left. But I do want to say to you, you should all be ready to help the Jews to leave when the time comes, to hide the Jews, to bring them to safe havens and get them over to Israel. And if the Jews are married to the Christians, according to the law of return in Israel, the Christians must come home too. And I think it's going to be a great day when Jews and Christians, arm in arm, locked, go up to the Messiah on the Mount of Olives and say, excuse me, sir, is this your first visit to the Holy Land? Check his hands, check his feet. Isn't that fair? Isn't that what Jesus said to his disciples? Look at my hands, look at my feet. I accept that. We are the generation that's going to receive the Messiah, whether we like it or not. And I wanted to thank Pastor Gary and Georgie. They're not my friends anymore. They're my family. And I love being here every time. Thank you very much. Okay, how do we do the questions and answers?
I'm going to grab a mic so that we can make sure that people listening online can hear the questions.
Okay, by the way, my time is unlimited, so as long as there are questions, I talk till you drop.
You'll speak till they drop, is that what you said? Okay. All right, who wants to be first? Who's got the first question? Okay.
Okay, that's 2. Can you touch on the Psalm 83 war? Not the war where Israel will get his land. The borders expanding, what you mentioned earlier, and in the foreshadow of what's coming to America, from what you were saying, in the latter days, America cannot be seen as a world power. It has to be all in the Middle East and the East.
Okay, well, firstly, regarding the Psalm 83 war, as I said before, there are 2 types of Islam. They're both crazy, but there are 2 types of Islam, Shiite Islam and Sunni Islam. And they hate each other and they fight each other. At this time, it would seem ironic, but Israel is making peace agreements with the Sunni Muslims. The enemy today is the Iranian Shiite Muslims, though we never had a problem with the Shiites in the past. This is a new invention of Ayatollah Khomeini, and we have to thank President Jimmy Carter and his big new Brzezinski for toppling the Shah, who was the great ally of the West. I'm working now on my 8th book. My 8th book is called Turkey and the Armageddon. Now, I don't know if Turkey is the Armageddon War or if Turkey is the Psalm 83 war, but I will say one thing. The ISIS group declares every day that they are going to topple King Abdullah of Jordan and King Salman of Saudi Arabia, and ISIS is going to reestablish its caliphate in Saudi Arabia and Jordan. When that happens, God forbid, there will be black flags of ISIS all along the Jordan River, which means, the Jordan River is like a little creek here in the United States, that they are going to be digging tunnels underneath the Jordan River to invade Israel with their terrorist armies, millions of Muslims. Israel will have to have a defensive war and take Jordan and Saudi Arabia. That's why they attacked me on the Egyptian TV last week, because I was saying we're going to take Mecca and Medina. Why would we want to take Mecca and Medina? We don't want to take Mecca and Medina. You know what my worst enemy is? The Jewish mother. Why is the Jewish mother my worst enemy? Have you ever been to Florida? In Florida, people have these golf carts. And Jewish moms want their kids a golf cart drive away, meaning not more than 10, 15 minutes, within usually the villages or something like that. And I'm telling you right now, if we take Jordan and Saudi Arabia and Syria and Lebanon, our kids are going to be scattered all over the Middle East. They're going to have to fly, like in America, where American kids are distant from their parents and they have to fly. So the Jewish mother hates me. I'm not saying I want to do it. I'm saying that God is going to set things up in such a way that it's going to happen. So the Psalm 83 war could be, in my opinion, a war or a brief war with the forces of ISIS along our borders. Now, Turkey is far away, and Turkey does not like it that Israel has forged an alliance with the Christian Greeks and Cypriots. Turkey is threatening a war with us. I believe at some stage, Turkey is going to go mad. And I think I mentioned it here in the past. How many people remember the Battle of Lepanto? One hand, two hands. Lepanto. Lepanto, 1571. The Catholic fleets of Venice and Spain completely sink the Turkish fleet. It was the beginning of the end of the Turkish Empire, because whoever controlled the sea routes controlled Europe. And so the name of my book, fittingly, is Lepanto II, when the Israeli Navy sinks the entire Turkish fleet, which is planning to conquer Cyprus and confiscate or destroy the Israeli-Greek alliance with the oil and gas pipeline going to Greece and Italy. We're going to supply Italy with oil and gas. That's the Armageddon War. Because Israel will sink the Turkish fleet, but the Turks are going to mobilize an army of millions of Muslims from all over the Muslim world, Sunni Muslims. And then all the peace agreements with the Sunni states will get broken. And we'll be alone again. So the only people who I think will stand with us will be the Christians. Yes?
Who up? Where?
In Ezekiel 38 and 39, they're going to attack from the north Israel unawares. Do you feel like that would be before the rapture of the church or after the rapture of the church? Ezekiel's not clear.
I am not an experienced or educated enough person to be able, I haven't studied in a Christian seminary, so I really don't know how the rapture fits in here. But what I will say is, if we sink the Turkish Navy, the Turks are going to mobilize hundreds of millions of Muslims from Indonesia and Malaysia and India and Egypt and Turkey. Russia has millions, 200 million Turkic Muslims, the former Soviet Union. They're all going to come march on Israel. I know there's a question over there. Okay. There's only one question I don't want you to ask. When is the rapture? No, not the rapture. When is the earthquake? Because earthquake could happen at any time in Israel.
Can you expand a little bit on the what's inside the Kaaba? Is there an an idol in there, or is there a stone? What is it all about the Kaaba?
From what I know about the Kaaba, there is a collection of idols there. And it's been kept secret. And I'll add another thing also. I kind of spoke about it in the morning. I believe that Moses was an understudy to Jethro for 40 years, from age 40 to age 80. And like I said before, when Moses confronted Pharaoh, he said, "Let my people go, so that they may go around in circles in the desert." That's my yellow book. The idea was to take the Israelites out of slavery in Egypt, take them over to Saudi Arabia, to go around the Black Stone. Have you ever seen the Jewish phylacteries? It's a black cube. The rabbis want to kill me. I say that's the Kaaba in Mecca. And I put on phylacteries. Some of the Muslims say Avi is a candidate to become a Muslim because he puts on the phylacteries, and that black cube is a symbol of the black stone in Mecca. But terrible things happened in those times because the pagan systems of those times were, of course, sacrificing children to Molech, which God hates. God stopped it. Homosexuality, where men slept with men. Bestiality. Bestiality does not mean beastly behavior. Bestiality means sleeping with animals. These were all things that happened in those days. And so I think God took the Israelites from the Black Stone, moved them north in Saudi Arabia to the real Mount Sinai, which is not far from Eilat. It's about 200 kilometers, and not far from Tabuk, which is a city there in the north of Saudi. See, one of the things that drives me crazy that we have all these rabbis, we have all these yeshivas, and all these supposed geniuses, and nobody is aware of the Saudi connection to the Exodus. They don't want to know. Nobody wants to go back and study the origins of Judaism, which were pagan. By the way, the origins of all the religions were pagan at first. But God redirected all our efforts into serving God, in the case of the Jews and the Christians. So yes, there are, I believe, pagan things in that black stone.
Anybody else have a question? Huh? Oh, okay.
This is probably the last question because it's 8 o'clock and it's pumpkin time.
Well, I'd like to give somebody else a chance if there is somebody. Anybody? All right, then you can have the last one.
With the Iranian regime, they're getting close to nuclear-grade plutonium. The IDF is going to be backed up against the wall because they're not going to wait for anybody's approval. They can't.
Right.
Where do you see this coming in? Because
Firstly, I have to tell you something. It was in the news. This last weekend, our new Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, went to Russia, first to Sochi, then to St. Petersburg, to meet with Putin. And you have to remember that there are many Russian troops in Syria. They're there to protect the Shiites and the Christians and the Druze from the Sunnis. If the Russians pull out, ISIS takes over. But we Israelis are not interested in killing Russians. And so, firstly what they did was they coordinated with the Russians to get the Russian troops out of harm's way. Because like I said before, we have no interest in killing the Russians. I'll say something else also. I'm going out on a limb to say this. The Russians are using the Iranians in the battle against the Turks. Russia has been fighting the Turks for 1,000 years, the Sunni Muslims. The Iranians, the Shiites, for the Russians have been allies. Because the enemy of my enemy is my ally. The Russians made a lot of good money with the Iranians, helping them to build their nuclear project. Do you know who started the Iranian nuclear project? the Americans and the Israelis under the Shah. The Russians, forgive me for saying it, I love the Russians, but they're racist. The Russians don't like the Muslims, Shiite or Sunni. So I think what we'll be seeing is some kind of a disengagement of the Russians from the Iranians. And another thing that I wanted to add to this morning's message, if a war breaks out with China, which I pray to God does not happen, I don't think the Russians are going to join the war against America. Russia is 140 million people. They have the same population as Italy. They have the same GDP as Italy. So I don't think the Russians are stupid enough to want to go to war against America. I think the Russians really understand what kind of weaponries America really has. America plays stupid. Remember Kick Me? And so I think that with the Russians, we are finding a way to gently, surgically remove them in a friendly way from interfering in what's going on with Iran. Russia will stay in Syria, like I said before, because if the Russians leave Syria, the Christians will be slaughtered, the Shiites will be slaughtered, the Druze will be slaughtered, and they are all minorities. The majority Sunnis will destroy the minorities. Thank you very much, everyone.
Okay, guys, it's been a long day. Don't forget, we've got the baskets here on each end if you want to help Avi and all that he's doing with his party and so forth. And just
What do you mean, if?
Sorry. Since you do, make the check out to Calvary Chapel East, and we'll make sure that Avi gets the money. It's easier for him if we just give him one big check. So let's stand, and let's pray. And Avi will be over there at the book table if you'd like to talk to him and maybe get some of his books, CDs, DVDs, and so forth. Father, thank you so much for this time we've been able to have today with Avi. God, we pray for your blessings upon him as he continues to pursue the calling that you placed upon his life, Lord, that he is compelled to do. We pray for physical strength and health, as well as mental, emotional, and spiritual strength. Pray for Rachel and all the family back in Israel, that you watch over them, keep them safe, continue to bless them, provide for them. And we just thank you so much for our good friend. And we ask you to go before him as he continues on his journey. And pray for safe travel as we go home tonight. And we ask your blessing upon the offering, Lord, that everything that comes in would be a blessing to Avi and a blessing to those who choose to give. We thank you in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Good. This is for you.